Pardon the interruption. We had to break for a client, and while we broke for a client, there was a huge thunderstorm. We had to relocate inside. Change of scenery. Long story short, though, before even falling into this disempowering relationship or situationship, there was a definite exchange of energy and this human magnet syndrome, push and pull, chaser runner, twin flame, karmic twin flame, whatever you want to call it, deeply transformative soulmate type experience. It was as though we could both sense the feelings in the other, and every time he sensed my hesitation, it triggered his abandonment wounds, which caused him to want to leave me before I could leave him. And while I could feel his anxiety rise and he could feel mine, the more anxious I became, the more that seemed to repel, and the more avoidant he became, completely going in the other, the more dissociating or dissociative avoidant path, whereas I was more on the anxious attached side of the spectrum at the time. I've since come into more harmony and balance. But this brings me back to the theme of this full moon, and that is to integrate. Integrity comes from the word integrate. It means that our values are aligned with our thoughts, our spoken words, our written words, and most importantly, our actions, because we are what we repeatedly do. People with integrity say what they mean what they say, and their actions align with their words. What I was missing in that connection, I was choosing instead to focus on what I wanted to hear, the lies, the promise of maybe someday getting there, that allure of what I thought was my soulmate, him understanding intuitively what I most wanted and using that to kind of keep the upper hand and manipulate me along the way, having no intention of reciprocating that ever. Had I looked at the inconsistency between what was being said and the actions, like many of my friends and family tried so hard to get me to see, if I had been willing to see that, it would have saved a few months of that. It would have saved probably some more pain and heartbreak. But again, these things all happen for a reason. Would I be as awakened now had I not experienced such a transformative relationship? Would I still be falling for my mom's latest ploy and tactic? Probably. Would I still be letting people keep me small by listening to their projections of me rather than having the courage to show up with integrity and say, no, this is who I am. You're not going to tell me who I am. I am going to show you who I am. With Leo, creative self-expression. We're too called to integrate under this full moon as we deconstruct old limiting paradigms and thoughts, beliefs, emerge like Phoenix rising from the ashes, stronger and more empowered, and shift into new ways of being with Pluto in Aquarius, the age of Aquarius, from 2024 to 2040. We got a little taste of this as Pluto dipped its toes into Aquarius in late March until June 11th of 2023, offering us a little preview of what's to come. So now, what past imbalanced relationships do we need to release? What forgiving do we need to do to ourselves, both in how we showed up in that relationship, and instead of beating ourselves up or calling ourselves stupid, accepting, like, yeah, we were vulnerable. We were in a really vulnerable situation, and we chose to remain blind to somebody that was clearly didn't love us, wasn't capable of loving us, and simply wanted to use us for their own selfish gain and interest. Where do we need to forgive ourselves? Where do we need to also forgive the other person? And remember, forgiveness really, even when you're forgiving somebody else, it really is more of a self-healing thing for you. Especially with this Black Moon Lilith, Venus, Mars, Pallas, Athena conjunction in Leo, trine to Chiron at 19 degrees of Aries. This is bringing triggers to our core wounding around not feeling as though we're enough, which might lead us to settling for situations that are less than what we truly deserve. This is bringing a lot of inner child healing, especially in the sign of Leo. It's happening at a square to Uranus at 21 degrees of Taurus. So how are we supported and how are we getting clarity? It's bringing in Venus, our one-on-one relationships, unpredictability to our one-to-one relationships, this square to Uranus. And it'll be kind of prolonged with first it'll hit the square, then it'll retrograde back to the point of the square, and then we'll go past that again a final time. So the next few months we'll be visiting the energies of this square, bringing unpredictability in our one-on-one relationships, possibly even the work we do. Venus has a lot to do with our values. It rules over both Taurus and Libra. Remain open to the unexpected. Remain open to miracles. Release any attachments to outcome or specific expectations, and you might sense a greater need for freedom and space. So So make sure you give yourself and your romantic partners or your business partners or whatever it is ample space at this time. Hold space for each other. Watch out for overindulging and overspending. We do have a couple of Venus squares to Jupiter happening as well with this retrograde, and that can lead to some overspending and overindulging. Not seeing eye to eye. Mars involved in this. We're more open to breaking through barriers that once held us back and probably held us back for a long time. We're more focused on independence, autonomy, and freedom. We're more likely to take risks and be impulsive, so definitely look out for this energy. With the Sun and Mercury in Cancer the next month or so, look out for being overly emotional or emotionally reactive in communication, Mercury, and overall we'll be more sensitive under these energies. This is ultimately encouraging us, while we want to be cautious with risk-taking, we do want to have some adaptability and learn to be more flexible and on the fly. Because you never know when the skies are going to open up and it's going to thunderstorm and you need to move your set. It may also bring increased inflammation and impulsivity, so also be mindful of what you're putting into your bodies and the inflammatory reactions it can lead to. On the horizon, we should talk a little bit about Monday, July 10th, freshly rained upon calendar. Between this video, so Monday, full moon, 11 degrees Capricorn, Monday, July 3rd. Happy 4th of July, by the way. Just because I don't say it doesn't mean I'm not wishing you a happy holiday. I just don't always acknowledge all these commercial holidays. It's a lot to keep track of anymore. And I don't want to inadvertently leave anyone out or be exclusive. It really isn't anything personal. It's enough trying to keep track of where the planets are. July 10th, it is our last quarter moon in Aries. This will be an exact opposition of Mercury at 29. Mercury's gonna move through Cancer in 2 weeks, just like it moved through Gemini. It's moving really fast right now. So we only have 2 weeks of Mercury and the Sun both answering to the moon. So pay attention to where the moon is and really lean into that energy the best you can. It changes every 2.5 days. I'll be posting a lot on TikTok, Instagram, and putting some on here as well for the day-to-day stuff. You can definitely catch those Friday videos consistently. I can't really, with my time bandwidth right now, I can't do it every day, but I'll do it for the major days. So July 10th, Mercury, 29 degrees of Cancer, so just as quickly as it's coming into Cancer, it's leaving it. Opposite, Pluto retrograde at 29 degrees Capricorn. You got it. Working against it. Opposition. Call to integrate. Since it's the phase right before the new moon, we are coming from 100% fullness to 0% for the new moon, so it'll be decreasing in size. So when it decreases in size, it's symbolic of things that we need to let go of to make room for what we then want to manifest and plant new seeds for under the new moon. So you'll notice it's a constant theme of like reflecting and shedding, releasing and inviting in the new. And that's really how it is. It comes in waves, it comes in layers. You're aware, you really aren't aware of some things sometimes. Like every friend, every family member can tell you that the guy that you're seeing is no good, and you still want to believe the sweet, sweet lies that are coming out of his mouth. Like, that stuff can be so deeply toxic, so addicting. Like, an emotional trauma bond is a really seriously strong, mutually damaging connection. And it can really, you can really have blinders up. So just have grace with people, because it might be really obvious from your perspective, from the outside looking in, of what somebody else needs to do and fix. But just keep in mind, it might be really hard for that person at this time to see that themselves. So we have to talk to people where they're at, right? I can't go around convincing everybody to be into astrology as much as I would love for everybody to be into it. It is simply one of many tools that people can use to learn about themselves. It's one that spoke to me, and it's one that I believe I can use to help others. But it doesn't mean it's everybody's cup of tea. We have to hold space and have grace for that, and understand that everybody comes to different levels of awareness, different understandings of their own internal patterns in their own time. And some of us are so deeply stuck in traumatic patterns that we cannot see. And for some people, it's hard to see the way out of that, especially when holding people to past versions or perceptions of them that, okay, maybe you saw their ego, but that's not who they are. They slipped up, they let a part of that ego show that they need to instead look at, sit down with, and say, okay, maybe now and then you can sit next to me in the passenger seat, but never again can you take the wheel. It's this conscious, bringing this conscious awareness, this ability to think about our own thoughts and to reflect upon our behavior that sets us apart from other animals in the animal kingdom. It's both a power and a great responsibility. So with this last quarter moon, Mercury opposite Pluto, Mars entering Virgo, which answers to Mercury ruling both Virgo and Gemini, and that's setting the stage for Venus retrograde. Virgo can be, and Mars in Virgo, it's like super detail oriented. It can be a little perfectionistic and it can be a little bit critical because it has really high expectations, not only for itself, but for others. And when this is imbalanced, and Mars is like the outward expression of energy. So you can look for a lot of like Virgo energy to be projected from mid-July onward. Mars comes in first and then Venus will follow after the retrograde through Leo. And that retrograde is really going to cause us to look inward, do some self-love and some self-healing. And then we'll have a Mercury retrograde when we come out of that through Virgo. So it'll be super strong in one of its signs of rulership. It's in a really self-critical, perfectionistic sign. Virgo moons, that might be rough. Well, we'll get there, little by little. The next major lunation is the new moon at 24 degrees of Cancer. That is also with the moon being strong in its sign of rulership. And under that same transit, we have the North and South Node shifting signs. Also on a Monday, the major lunations in July are on moon days, Mondays. Cancer season, answering to the moon per typical Cancer fashion. We have the North Node and South Node, which are always opposite, right? That's the North and South pole of the moon. The North Node shifting from Taurus, where it was very focused on our resources, our overall resourcefulness, our values, our money, how we treat Earth, appreciating what we have versus constantly feeling like we have to chase more. It's shifting out of Taurus and into Aries, which will have it also with Chiron there. It'll have a focus on healing wounds of being enough, but also like tapping more into different levels of independence and autonomy. And that'll be the focus of our collective energy, our collective fate and destiny for the next 1.5 years, from this mid-July, end of July point all the way until early January of 2025. And the South Node being opposite will shift from, it's been in Scorpio, which has been a major focus on like shared money, investments. It can include loans, inheritances, trust funds, like people with a lot of Scorpio tend to come from families with a lot of shared wealth. It's just something I've noticed. Scorpio and Leo. Leo tends to have like royalty and wealth associated with it too. And there's like a lot of like power that comes tied with money. And it's one of the reasons why I really, honestly, at the end of the day, my mom chooses revenge and she chooses greed over anything else. And it leads her down a dark path. Similarly, with the South Node in Scorpio, we're shedding patterns of misuses where maybe we're manipulating emotionally, or maybe we're manipulating power in some way, or overly reliant on shared money, and we're learning how to move into a more autonomous and independent energy. Because while it's a blessing being born into a wealthy family, it does put one in a position where they're less likely to appreciate what they have because everything's been handed to them without much work being put into it, which can also come with some patterns of laziness. They're called, it's shadow Leo and some shadow Scorpio too, but pains of entitlement are what you'll see in this storyline where I can see parallels with my mom and her own entitlement and her own obsession with greed and money that leads down this very narcissistic and a really dark path, honestly. So with it shifting into Libra, it'll be answering to Venus, the North Node answering to Mars being in Aries, and then the South Node being opposite that in Libra answering to Venus. This will be, the South Node, like we said earlier, is like it's like another moon sign, right? So it's somewhere where you're really comfortable. It carries a lot of past life energy with it, where when our ego is triggered, this is an energy where we feel really, and we might resort to it, but we're really supposed to be meant to, in this lifetime, break through the discomfort of the North Node energy. We're really supposed to, that's our destiny, that's our fate, is to tap into that North Node and leave the South Node behind. The more that we shed those layers of ego in that South Node, the more then, as we detach from ego and slay that ego in different levels and layers, we're able then to tap into the South Node gifts, which, for example, let's see, South Node in Libra, so its gift is like creating peace and harmony and beauty. It's got all sorts of social justice tied to it and balance, and it's the only zodiacal sign that has an inanimate object to represent it, the scales of balance. And it's because Libra is meant to, they can see both sides, right? But they're meant to get to that next level, that Aquarian complete detachment, that fellow air sign, but like grandpa air sign. Libra, Gemini gathers the info, right? It sees the light and the dark, and it's really kind of indifferent, but it like gathers it all. And then Libra then has to call in that morality, the light and the dark, and balance it. And the ultimate goal being that detachment. With the South Node in Libra, our egos are shedding patterns of codependency, and Libra, because it loves harmony, it hates conflict. And it will, when really imbalanced and really shadow Libra, it can even be dishonest or deceitfully manipulative because it is fearful of hurting someone else's feelings, or it's fearful of backlash or getting in trouble or conflict, really. So we're learning to truly balance this through right relation. We're learning to balance this through right relationship with self and other. Then on July 22nd, we have Leo season, so the sun entering its sign, the sign it rules, so the sun in rulership, coinciding with Venus retrograde through Leo. Also influencing and ruling our South Node, so it's something that we're all going to feel in different amounts. This is the first Venus retrograde to begin and end in Leo since 1772. It's as heart-centered as it gets. The retrograde, which begins on July 22nd and stops, so the retrograde, the backwards motion, stops at 12 degrees, 12 minutes of Leo, so 28 degrees to 12:12, mirror number 12:12. Leo from July 22nd until September 9th, and then it'll move forward through those same degree points again. The 28th degree is considered the household name. It's associated with the millionaire's degree, and it's a Cancer degree, and it's Cancer season, or at least it will be until that exact moment. Because it's in the sign of Leo, it's an invitation and a sign to dream big. The mirror number 1212 indicates to expect the helping hand of fate. Keep it positive. Your dreams are coming true. This Venus in Leo retrograde, there will be more in videos to come, begins at 28 degrees of Leo, which is the exact location of Regula, or Alpha Leo, Alpha Leonis, the heart of the Leo constellation. Look out for decisions and stances on love and relationship and money being more ego-centric, which can lead to more fears, insecurities, and disagreements. These transits invite you to explore how drastically your life can change when you open yourself to love and trust and personal growth. When we have grace for self and others, when we lead with love and compassion, when we heal our past wounds and do the work, we'll all have opportunities for this in the upcoming Venus retrograde transit. Watch out for spending, especially major purchases. I wouldn't do them during a Venus retrograde. I also wouldn't start a new position or work opportunity. Or a relationship. You can wait until Venus is moving direct. I met this karmic twin flame I mentioned earlier during a Venus retrograde. And what they say is Venus rules what you invest your time, money, and energy into. And anything during a Venus retrograde, especially if you're Venus ruled like myself, as a Libra rising, the more placements in Libra, the more you'll be affected, or Taurus, or in this case, Leo, because it's happening in the sign of Leo, so the sun influenced. Things that involve time, energy, love, money that you invest in during a Venus retrograde, it's said to be a bad, like you're going to regret it. It's something that you're just going to return to, or the purchase will have to be returned. There's going to be something wrong with it. And that definitely proved to be true in that relationship. It was a very poor investment of my energy in the end, although it taught me a tremendous deal. Never ever put yourself in a position where you're settling for less than you deserve because somebody is feeding you crap and choosing to remain a victim to their past trauma and using that to manipulate you instead of actually doing the work. Never ever settle. Speaking of past people, Venus retrograde it's like a Mercury retrograde, and we have some transits right now that are very Mercury retrograde-esque, but Venus rules over our homes, it rules over our one-on-one relationships, both romantic, platonic, business partnerships. So watch out for past people coming back. They could be friends, they could be any significant one-to-one relationship, it could be Venus-ruled people, it could be past soulmates, you could be hearing from a past karmic. Remember that when people do return, pattern, try really hard not to hold them to that past projection or perception, as hurt and angry as you might feel or be. And you'll know, because you'll know how you feel when the opportunity arises or when you let yourself feel it. Look at how they're showing up now, and you'll know. You'll be able to feel it on an energetic level. You'll either feel anxious and uncomfortable, or you'll start to physically get sick, or you'll get some sort of like skin outbreak, and you'll know that that situation, that job, that boss, that boyfriend, that person that you're spending time with isn't for you, that friendship, whatever it may be, versus noticing when something is in your best interest or fills your cup or lifts you up. At the end of the day, this Venus retrograde will help us identify our own toxic patterns so that we can, through awareness, heal them and release ourselves from them. If you enjoyed this video, you'll be sure to enjoy these other videos.